Today's story is about a wizard so terrifying, so mysterious, that no words can truly describe him. Believe it or not, he once sacrificed an entire school of students to the devil. But what came after was even stranger. Get ready, my friend, for horrifying events and shocking actions that will take you into a one-of-a-kind tale you've never heard before. A like is always appreciated, and don't forget to leave a comment as bright as your kind face. Now, let's begin today's episode. Peace be upon you, I am Ali Ahmed. Today I'll tell you followers' stories, so if you have a story you'd like to share, you can send it to the Instagram account appearing on the screen. Our first tale is told by Salama, 32, from the Iraqi city of Samawa. He takes us back to the days of the national census. At the time, I was working for a government office. As everyone remembers, a curfew was enforced during the census. Streets emptied, families stayed home, and many welcomed the unexpected break. But in my case, solitude ruled. Living alone, the holiday stretched into one of the longest, most lifeless days I can remember. Instead of just lying around at home bored, I thought, why not sign up for the census team? That way I could break the routine, have some fun, and meet people while getting a glimpse of their lives from a whole new angle. So I applied, and they actually accepted me. Later, my name was even pulled for the post-census sorting process. So not only was I part of the field teams collecting data, but I also got to do the sorting at a government office with actual pay, almost as if I had landed a real job. I had already begun doing my job to the fullest, flawlessly, without a single hitch, and the secrets I stumbled upon were unbelievable. Men secretly married without their families knowing, others with multiple wives, some owning properties they never registered just to avoid paying taxes. A whole world of hidden lives and strange truths, and my curiosity, my hunger to know, kept me working harder just to peel back the masks and laugh at what people tried so desperately to conceal, until eventually I reached a place known as Ninder April District. By then, 3 others were with me, also assigned to the census. I told them we'd sweep the entire neighborhood, house by house, and gather at the far end, right by Saeed Jabbar's cemetery, where the district seemed to fade into silence. By 6 o'clock, dusk was settling. Only 4 houses remained, the last 4 on the edge of the settlement, their backs pressed against the endless palm groves. There were 4 of us left, so each of us stood before a door and knocked. But the door I chose was different. An elderly woman appeared, so old that I was stunned. I swear the sheer number of wrinkles on her face left me shocked and uneasy. I greeted her. "Peace be upon you, Grandma. My name is Salama. I'm with the census team." The old woman smiled and said, "Welcome, welcome. Please come inside." But instead of stepping back into her home so I could follow, she did the opposite. She stepped outside and headed straight toward the palm groves. I was taken aback and thought, is she for real? She opened the door for me and said, "Please, come in." But then she left me standing there and headed toward the orchards. It was sunset, and to be honest, the old woman looked terrifying. That's why I had no intention of calling after her, or worse, following her. So I told myself she'll come back on her own. Maybe she's just going to fetch someone from the orchard. While I stood in front of the house with the door open, the house was dark with no electricity for some reason. As I stood and waited, I saw several times a girl moving in and out more clearly from the inner door. I was standing on the street next to the main door, watching a girl coming out to the garden and entering again. But I wasn't focused until I glimpsed her appearance and was captivated. She was insanely beautiful and stood staring at me as if puzzled that I was being so shameless, looking at her while she was inside her own house. That's when it hit me. I was being inappropriate. I quickly apologized, saying, "I'm sorry, sister, but could you please call someone? I'm the census officer." I lowered my head out of respect, knowing she was in her home, but she didn't say a word. The girl turned and went inside, and never came out again. I waited. An hour passed, hoping someone else from the household would appear, but no one ever did. I stayed there, waiting in the dark. Honestly, it was the girl's face. I was hoping she'd come back out and speak to me. But the house remained silent, nothing but shadows inside. An hour later, my friends returned and asked, "So, did you finish?" I told them what happened. They laughed, and one of them stepped forward confidently, saying, "All right then, I'll do it myself." He pounded on the door, but no one answered. That's when a neighbor stormed out, his voice sharp with irritation. "Are you insane? This house has been abandoned for 8 years. You've been knocking like fools for an hour. The old woman who lived here died, and her only son left. Ever since, the place has been empty, forgotten." We were all puzzled by his words, but I was the most shocked because I had seen it with my own eyes. An old woman had opened the door for me, and I had also glimpsed a young girl inside the house. I told him, "Brother, an old lady opened this door, and it's standing open right in front of you, and there's a girl inside the house as well." The neighbor said, "No way, my friend. That house has been empty for 8 years. But I swore to my friends that I had seen a girl inside with my own eyes. The old woman had wandered off toward the palm groves, and some believed me, while others sided with that man. After all, I was the only one who truly saw it, and since I was part of the census team, we had the authority to contact the police if we suspected anything unusual. So we called them, at least to have the house searched just in case." The police entered the house, but there was absolutely nothing inside, no sign of the old woman. In fact, there was no trace of anyone ever living there. The house had been locked from the inside, except for the front door, which had somehow opened, though no one could explain how. Not even a single footprint marked the floor. It was clear evidence the place had been abandoned for a very long time. The next day, I returned to the neighborhood and asked around about the house. That's when I learned that 8 years ago, an elderly woman lived there with her only son, but no one really knew them. They never mixed with the neighbors, never spoke to anyone. It happened suddenly. The old woman died for reasons no one could explain, and her only son stumbled out into the street, pleading with strangers. "What's happening?" they asked. "Help me, please. My mother has just died inside," he said in desperation. But by the time the people entered the house, the boy was nowhere to be found. He had vanished without a trace, abandoning his mother's corpse on the cold floor. The neighbors, puzzled and unsettled, took it upon themselves to bury her and hold the funeral rites. The police found something unsettling in the house. Clothes and pictures of a woman in her 20s, along with personal items, a necklace, a shoe, things that clearly belonged to her, yet nothing more than things. As for the woman herself, nobody knew who she was. This family was known to be just a mother and her son living in isolation. No visitors, no friends, no outsiders for years. After digging deeper into the case, the police uncovered a missing person report. A young woman from the same city but a different neighborhood known as Al Jamia. The report was recent, only a day or two old. Suspicion quickly grew that the girl might have been inside this very house. Her clothes and shoes were there too. Even photographs of her were found scattered inside. The old woman's son became the prime suspect. Had he kidnapped her, maybe even killed her? Yet, apart from the clothes and belongings, the police found nothing, absolutely nothing. And from that day, the house was abandoned, the girl vanished, and the young man, up to this very moment, has never been found. The story you just heard, as I said, took place 8 years ago, but Salama only came to know about it a few weeks back, during the population census. The strange part? The way people described the old woman's appearance was exactly the same as what he had seen. And even the missing girl, I somehow managed to find a picture of her, and I swear it was her. A strange mystery I have no explanation for. From that very moment, something inside me changed. I felt drawn to her as if I had known her all my life. Since then, I haven't been able to get her out of my mind. I can't even think of marriage just to forget her. And maybe, just maybe, this girl actually died 8 years ago. Or worse, was murdered by that old woman's son. If anyone has an explanation for what happened, write it in the comments. The second story comes from Ayub Chawi, a storyteller from Morocco, hailing from the town of Sidi Alal El Bahrawi. Ayub recalls, back in 2001 in our small town, there was an old elementary school known as Al Ahly Primary, founded in 1965. At this school, events unfolded that can only be described as bizarre. Witnessed not just by students, but by the entire neighborhood. It all began when the night guard suddenly resigned, giving a chilling reason for his departure. He swore he would hear screams echoing inside the school every single night, from midnight until 4 in the morning. 3 endless hours of agonizing, high-pitched cries, so unbearable no one could possibly endure them for even a moment. The night guard hesitated, too terrified to enter and uncover the source of the cries. In all the years he had worked at the school, he had never encountered such a sound. He ignored it the first night, and the second, and again on the third. But in the end, he broke and resigned. No one ever knew if the voice was truly there, or if it was something else entirely. Within only a few days, 4 guards in a row abandoned their posts, all driven away by the same thing. The screams went on, unending and unbearable, until the school administration finally decided no more night guards. Was the nightmare over? Of course not. In fact, it only escalated, twisting into something far darker. The students themselves began to report seeing a grotesque, terrifying man. He would emerge in daylight, shriek into their faces, and vanish without a trace. You might dismiss it as childish fantasy until the day the teacher was mid-lesson and the entire class suddenly erupted in blood-curdling screams. Not one, not a few, but every single student. When order was finally restored, their stories matched perfectly. A horrifying man had stood behind the teacher, let out a scream, and disappeared. No one could see it except the little kids. At first, I thought it was just 10, maybe 20 students, but the number was closer to 90. It got so bad that they refused to come to school anymore. Before long, the classrooms were completely empty. No student was willing to set foot inside, and strangely, they all gave the same exact reason. The administration had no choice but to shut the school down for a while, and even called in clerics and spiritual leaders, because the only explanation anyone could give was that the place had become home to a demon or a jinn. The ritual of exorcism began that night within the haunted school, an attempt to banish the defiant jinn and the demons. 4 of the city's most venerable sheikhs entered, staying inside for 3 long hours after dusk. When they emerged, they looked utterly drained, their expressions frozen in terror. They spoke only one command: abandon this place. No human should ever set foot here again. Why? No one revealed. The elementary school was left abandoned until further notice. A few days later, purely by coincidence, a resident happened to notice a suspicious figure slipping into the school garden at night. The man seemed to be planting, or maybe burying something, only God knows what. The witness, a local from the neighborhood, stood in shock, realizing the stranger was indeed hiding something in the school's grounds. What made the whole incident even stranger was, first of all, that the school had been abandoned for years, for unknown reasons, or maybe tied to jinn or dark magic. And then there was the man, whose appearance was unusual, as if he didn't even belong to this neighborhood, perhaps not even to the city. People started to talk. One of the city's respected sheikhs later uncovered what had been buried in the school's garden: charms and spells of all kinds. He literally pulled out a dead dog that had been used in sorcery, and even an entire human body stuffed with curses. Who could have buried it there, and why? No one had an answer, and the sheikh who dispelled those spells told them, since the magic has been lifted, there's no reason for the school to remain closed. God knows best, but for now, the place seemed fine, ready to return to service once again. Aged 29 still, the decision lay in the hands of the administration, and so the school reopened as if the problem had been solved. But had it really? No one truly knew. On the very first day after it was brought back into service, 14 first-grade children died within a single hour, one after another. The cause was said to be choking on food, yet none of them had been eating. It was as if something had sealed their airways from the inside. The tragedy shook everyone, because there was no way this could be natural. The 4 sheikhs who once attempted an exorcism warned both the people and the authorities. We told you not to reopen this school, and now this is the result. We had already said it before, this building is not fit for any human to set foot inside. Why? Because the school has been bound with the darkest forms of sorcery, God forbid. The deaths of those 14 students were no mere accident. Yes, they suffocated, but not from food. Their deaths will only feed the curse of this place. We warned you before so that a tragedy like this would never happen. The school was closed down, and when the investigators examined the 14 students who had died, the truth came out. Every single one of them had suffocated. There was no trace of food, no sign of choking on anything, almost as if some hidden presence, something beyond explanation, had sealed their breathing passages, until death claimed them. Just one day after the incident, the entire neighborhood was haunted by the sound of children screaming inside the abandoned school at random hours without warning. Curious and terrified, some residents dared to enter, while police cars lined the streets outside. But the building was always empty. Always. In the end, the decision was made to demolish it. And with that, the nightmare was buried, or at least that's what everyone hoped. And now, there's another school called Al-Thakna School that has begun facing the very same troubles. To prevent a repeat of the previous tragedy, it was shut down. Was it cursed? No one really knows, but rumor has it that the sorcerer who cast his spell on the old Al-Alali school had a sinister plan to offer its students as a sacrifice. After all, the mysterious deaths of the 14 students were anything but ordinary. That's what the locals believe. What about you? Share your thoughts in the comments. The third story comes from Rahaf, a 24-year-old from Al-Kharj, Saudi Arabia. She says, I've loved books ever since I was 12 years old. Back then, my mother would reward me with gifts for every achievement. And those gifts, they were always random books, completely random. Years passed, and by the time she turned 18, her parents built her a room dedicated entirely to books. They filled it with nearly 500 volumes, the greatest gift she had ever received. But what made this gift truly unforgettable wasn't just her love for reading. Those very books ended up saving her mother from permanent blindness, and perhaps even from death. Only God knows. It all started one random day when I picked up a book from my shelf without thinking much about it. To my surprise, the book was about the different forms of energy, their strength, and how deeply they affect human beings. A strange choice, yet it caught my curiosity. I ended up reading it cover to cover, uncovering a wealth of knowledge and details I never imagined existed. 2 years have passed since then, and though I've almost forgotten its details, that book still lingers in my memory. One day, my mother made a shocking discovery. Our Filipina housemaid had been stealing from our home and passing the valuables to a man she was secretly working with. It turned out they had struck a deal. She would steal, he would sell, and together they would split the profit. When my mother finally caught her red-handed, my father immediately terminated her contract, revoked her sponsorship, and arranged for her deportation. She had taken nearly $21,000 worth of belongings, including my mother's gold. We let her go without pressing charges, but within 3 days she was deported. That very night, after the ordeal was behind us, my mother awoke in terror, shaken, hysterical, and haunted by the whole experience. What was going on? She swore that everything her eyes fell upon was nothing but a filthy haze, like dirt, mud, and mist all tangled together. It blinded her completely. Fear gripped us. We thought my mother had lost her sight, or worse. Without wasting a second, we rushed her to the hospital, desperate for answers and a cure. What's baffling is that every doctor who checks my mother's eyes says the same thing. They're perfect, not even a 1% flaw. We sought out the best private hospitals and eye specialists, only to hear the same verdict again and again. That's when the unsettling thought struck us. What if the problem lies not in the eyes, but in the brain itself, unable to translate the images they send? We consulted doctor after doctor, hospital after hospital, across countless specialties, yet no answer ever came. The hardest part was watching my mother slowly lose the last glimmer of light in her eyes. Her vision turned into something strange, a world of mud, haze, and broken, dirty images. There was light, yes, but it only showed her shadows through the fog. With each passing day, that light dimmed further like a candle burning out. It was as though blindness was tightening its grip on her. The doctors had no answers. Her eyes were sound, they said, but the electricity carrying sight to the brain was fading away. And when it stops, her vision will be gone. Forever. No one can explain why. In the middle of all the stress and restless thoughts, I made myself a coffee and retreated to the book room. I thought maybe I can find a medical book, something that could explain my mother's eye problem, maybe even a way to heal it. It seemed like the perfect chance to channel my love for books into something meaningful. Yet just then a different book came to mind, one I had read 2 years earlier about energy, vibrations, and their impact on human beings. I opened it, and as my eyes scanned the pages, I started remembering passages and phrases. One topic in particular stood out, the idea that certain words carry resonances, vibrations that can subtly shape the human mind. The frequency of these words can resonate with the subconscious mind, triggering countless effects. Its impact is almost indistinguishable from magic itself, and it may serve as a gateway into the mystical realm. At that point, such words would be called incantations or enchantments. Let me clarify something important about this. It's a subject I once delved into and learned about through the science of sound engineering. There are certain sound frequencies that when a person is exposed to them continuously for a period of time can induce a state of drowsiness or even lull them to sleep. That's why some people find themselves dozing off after playing a particular video on YouTube. This phenomenon has been the subject of countless studies exploring how sound frequencies affect the human mind and body. Even the recitation of the Quran, for instance, carries a profound impact on the listener. After all, vision, hearing, and nearly all our senses operate through forms of energy, electrical impulses that the brain deciphers. When you listen to Quranic recitation, your eardrum vibrates, transmitting electrical signals via the nerves to the brain, which then interprets them in its own way. And this interpretation can affect you, quite literally. The same principle applies to sight, touch, and virtually every sensory experience. The topic runs deep. Dig into it and you'll uncover some truly strange and astonishing facts. Even the music we listen to carries certain frequencies that can have a surprisingly negative impact on us. This isn't just speculation. Countless studies have mentioned it, and anyone can look it up and use it to their advantage, turning that knowledge into power. Why do I dive into these kinds of details? Simple. I weave them into my videos. By using a certain frequency, the music taps into your subconscious. At night, that same frequency can even put you to sleep. And here's the twist. You won't notice the effect unless you're wearing headphones. The purpose isn't just the music itself. It's the atmosphere it creates. It relaxes you, draws you in, and sometimes even makes you doze off until the very end of the video. So the next day, you wake up, drop a comment saying you didn't finish the story, and come back to watch again. That's exactly the point. Anyway, back to the story. Rahaf said it's fine for now, but my mind had started dwelling on this particular kind of energy, the kind sorcerers are said to wield. I discovered how powerful words can be, how they can heal, and that real treatment isn't in hospitals, but with the true doctor, God himself and his sacred book. I approached my father with seriousness and laid out everything I had uncovered about this. Praise be to God, my father was convinced and brought in an experienced sheikh. He carefully walked us through everything, from beginning to end. We had our doubts. This felt like the work of magic. After the Filipino maid left, things started going wrong, and we couldn't help but wonder if she had cast a spell to take revenge on my mother. The sheikh looked at my mother and asked a single question. Did the maid ever throw water or juice directly on your face before leaving? And the real shock? My mother said, yes, when I caught her, I threatened to tell my husband and she began begging and crying. But she had stolen from me, stolen from my home. When I finally told my husband about her theft, I went to inform her to pack her things because she would be deported. Suddenly, she threw a cup of water right at my face. It was clear there was dirt and mud in it. It wasn't clean at all. That's everything. And then 3 days later, it happened. The sheikh understood what had to be done. He fetched a bucket of clean water, dropped a whole kilo of salt into it, added some ice cubes, and pressed 2 fingers of his right hand against my mother's eyes. He instructed her to tilt her head back and hold the water in her mouth without swallowing a drop. Then he began reciting verses from the Quran in a precise, deliberate rhythm, pressing his fingers against her eyes. My mother struggled to hold herself together, keeping the water in her mouth as long as she could, until she finally expelled every drop back into the bucket. And then what happened next, you won't believe it. The bucket held crystal clear water, the same water my mother had tasted, clean, salty, and cold. But when she spat it back into the bucket, something strange happened. As the sheikh recited Quranic verses, the water seemed to thicken, losing its clarity. Slowly, the entire bucket of water changed from pure and sparkling to murky, carrying hints of dirt and mud. We were puzzled, completely unsure of what was happening, as the sheikh continued reciting his prayers for nearly half an hour. Then he fell silent and asked my mother, "What exactly did you feel?" She replied, "It felt as if something was being pulled, like my eye was being drawn inward, or maybe something inside my eye was being pulled toward my brain. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just the sensation." The sheikh said, "Praise be to God, always," then took the water and threw it into the street. "I've done what I could. God willing, she will recover swiftly," he said and left. But I swear to you, just 1 day after what the sheikh did, my mother woke up fully healthy and her eyes were completely fine. She only has one small issue now, severe nearsightedness. But honestly, that's way better than going blind. Now she can fix her vision problem and even catch up on the episodes she missed. So what are you waiting for, my friend? Hit the bell, share the video, and treat your eyes to the upcoming episodes. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram to see my life outside YouTube. I'm Ali Ahmed. Goodbye. Is this even recording? Hang on. Hope I'm not screwing this up. Yeah, okay, all good. Disable? Nope. Fine. It really might not be recording. I'm about to panic, and if it fails, the video will go completely silent at the end. Guess I'll just share it as a podcast clip for now.